Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3. It is Wednesday, January the 17th, 2024. And if it's Wednesday night,
it's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. And please help us out with our algorithm on YouTube by hitting that like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our show. And then spread the word. If you're here watching the show, invite a friend to come watch it with you, and maybe repost the show on your social media platform to help us get the word out. With that being said, Tom, I'm on the my rainbow mic here, the famous rainbow mic, so which helps make it all come true. With that being said, let's do what we do best, which is bring news and information to our viewers, and for those who watch the show live, and for those who watch the show post recorded.
All right, folks, we have a jam-packed show tonight. Of course, we're going to start out. We're going to start out with our birthdays, but to kind of give you an overview of what we're going to discuss tonight, a Black World War II hero was honored here recently. Jimmy, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. Posthumously, it happened over 50 years later, but maybe
better late than never, Tom.
We have tracking the story, ladies and gentlemen. We've talked about Ralph Yarl, young man, brilliant artist, brilliant student who was unfortunately shot in the head and the arm last year. Well, less than a year than that later. He gets a great honor on an all-state band. For those of you who did not know, HBCUs through the UNCF Coalition have been gifted $100 million by the Lilly Foundation, RA. And in addition to that, we're going to talk a little bit about health. Even though the gap has been closing in terms of the death rate of African Americans when it comes to cancer compared to their white counterparts, they are still more likely to die from cancer. That is the most common forms. We're going to talk a little bit about something very interesting in Massachusetts. We covered Bill Russell a couple of years ago when he passed. Well, the city of Reading, who chased him away, is now trying to start a Bill Russell Day. And I think it's pretty interesting because somebody's kind of pushing on that. For those of you who are in the lower middle income bracket or have friends who do, Congress is trying to pass or extend a new child tax credit that you may be interested in. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the shifting politics in our community because obviously this is going to be a very big year, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So let's go ahead and get this party started right, but we're going to start out first, of course, with our birthdays. Today being January the 17th, 2024, we do have a couple of birthdays that we want to acknowledge today. Some folks who've been living for at least 10 years old might know this face. Michelle Obama has a birthday today, January the 17th.
Happy birthday,
absolutely.
First lady.
I hope she is out with the prayers, the hubby, out having someplace pretty good, maybe in the Chicago area. Jimmy, I think they still live in Chicago, right?
No, they do have a home in Chicago, but their primary home is in the Hamptons or in Nantucket. One of those, I think it's in the Hamptons.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, happy birthday former First Lady, always First Lady Miss Obama, always carried herself with class and elegance, regardless of the circumstances. When people go low, she said, we go high. All right, next birthday. His face is going to be familiar to a lot of us in the Gen X and above category. The James Earl Jones. You know,
Yes.
he's played in so many fantastic movies, but I think still my favorite has to be the Star Wars films.
Oh, really? I think
Yeah,
mine goes back to the River Niger movie. But I mean, he's playing so many great roles. But yes, the Star Wars. Was he just a voice there? Or he actually
he was the voice. He was the
was a
voice.
voice? Okay.
He was the voice. But he will be forever known for that dastardly Darth Vader voice in the Star Wars film.
Well, no one could do it like him, Tom.
Absolutely. Our next birthday, the director, the man behind the cameras, Antoine Fuqua. You may not know this face, but I'm pretty sure you know some of the movies that he has directed, including, I think, some of your favorites, Jimmy, the Equalizer.
Yeah, it's like the Equalizer. I didn't know he was a director.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. He has directed a lot of films. That Olympus Has Fallen, and Training Day, of course, which Denzel Washington.
Oh man, great movie, Training Day. Equalizer 3, great movie also. Go on and see it.
Yeah, and see, that's the power behind someone in the director producer role. You don't really know the faces, you just know the power that they produce on the screen.
Okay.
All right. For you old school basketball fans, you're going to love this one. Birthday coming up in a couple of days on January the 21st. And by the way, Antoine Fuqua is in a couple of days on the 19th. But on the 21st, we're going to skip a couple of days. Hakeem the Dream.
Man, the Dream looks good in old age.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he can probably get back on that court.
Bruh, it don't crack. And he has two sons that I think are also basketball players. I don't know what age they are right now, but two very handsome young men.
He's getting a little gray like me, but yeah, you look great, man.
Well, hey,
I've
man,
never seen him look so good.
You got to keep your face and your head shaved, man. So all that great. Another in the entertainment field, Billy Ocean.
Oh, Billy, man.
Yeah, Billy Ocean. Born on January the 21st. Back when we used to know him for his great crooning song.
Great music, man.
Man, he of course he had the black hair and all this other kind of stuff, but he has been definitely aging gracefully. Jimmy, it just don't crack.
I understand.
So those of you who love beautiful ballads, you've got to look up Billy Ocean. Both for those of you who are younger, may not have ever
young
heard
folks who are not familiar with him, yeah, they definitely go check him out. Go to iTunes or whatever music platform you listen to. Get the music. I mean, all of his music is great.
Exactly. And our last birthday for the day, Jimmy, drum roll, DJ Jazzy Jeff has a birthday coming up on January the 22nd. Of course, most folks know him for partnering with Will Smith, of course, on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And of course, he was his DJ. And, he's actually been on a couple of other films, but, he's been out there for a long time, still looking great.
Looking great, Tom.
So all that being said, we want to wish everyone who has a birthday today and the next week, including those folks we just showed, a very happy birthday coming up. Enjoy yourself. And if you live down here where it's kind of chilly right now, be careful getting out there on the road.
Ooh, trying to stay warm.
Exactly. So let's get to our first story, Jimmy. A couple of things I'd like to kind of show out there, some feel-good stories. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, sometimes, better late than never, but we did want to acknowledge Charles Jackson French. He was a Navy shipman who actually served during World War II, during a time which, African Americans who served did not really get the opportunity to serve in capacities of their white counterparts. But this gentleman here did such heroic features, Jimmy, that he is actually being announced and will be named after an Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyer just for his heroic feats during World War II. Jimmy, has an infamous story, after the Japanese forces had sunk one of the U.S. naval ships. Petty Officer First Class French dove into shark-infested waters, helped gather 15 of his injured shipmates on a raft, tied a rope around his waist, and then swam them back to the shores. And they literally called him the human tugboat because of his heroics and what he did. You know, he served in an era when black sailors were limited in terms of opportunities.
Tom, it's one thing to be in the boat and pedal the boat to shore. It is something totally different when you are pulling the boat to shore.
Exactly. With 15 people.
With 15 people, bodies and dead weight inside. Oh, wow.
And so, you know, he passed Jimmy in 1956, but, you know, his family at least will be honored, you know, for the heroics that he did during the World War II. It was announced just recently that he'll be honored and will have his name on a naval ship. The construction of the ship is supposed to begin in 2026, and the delivery is set for 2031.
Okay.
So
yeah, there are a lot of black service people, especially in the Navy, Tom, where you were sort of limited to just being a cook or a server, and that performed various heroic deeds and acts during World War II. So I'm glad we're finally catching up with probably a lot more of the Frenches and Dory Millers out there that we haven't recognized.
Very true. Very true. And again, you know, if we don't share these stories, who else is going to share them? It's our responsibility. And you know,
the Breakfast Club, that's for certain.
Stop. You know, your education does begin at home and it continues beyond school. All that being said, let's go to our next story. Another story that we tracked throughout the early part of last year. Ralph Yarl earns a spot on the Missouri All-State Band less than a year after being shot for accidentally going to the wrong house to get his little brother.
Has that case been adjudicated? Do we know the final outcome? Or just
no, actually, that's supposed to be coming up in October of this year.
Okay, so we'll pay attention to it and do a follow-up when it's adjudicated.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see what the final outcome is going to be.
Right, but Ralph Yarl, who was a bass clarinetist and a senior this year, was one of 4 to earn a spot on the All-State Band representing Staley High School in Kansas City, Missouri.
Congratulations to him.
Exactly. He was also, Jimmy, and you will appreciate this, recognized as a National Merit Commended Student after scoring in the top 3 to 4% of students in the country who took the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship.
SAT, okay.
Exactly. So he is a musician. He is a scholar. You know, again, this happened last year.
Just think how close he came to being wiped out and not existing anymore, and what a loss that would have been to all of us.
Exactly.
For his contribution to society not to be actualized.
Right. And so for those who are out there, continue to keep an eye on it. Continue to keep, you know, him and his family in your prayers. Again, the miscreant, Andrew Lester, who shot him in the head, then shot him in the arm after he had fallen to the ground. You know, he has been charged. And on October the 7th, I think the trial is scheduled to begin on October the 7th of 2024. So we have to keep an eye on that and make sure that we continue to keep this young man and his family in our prayers so he will continue to stay strong throughout this process, because that is traumatic, Jimmy. You know, to your point, could have been a lot worse.
Well, Tom, on top of that, we talk about this on a regular basis, kids who are doing extraordinary things. This man almost died, young man almost died. And so for kids out there who have it much better, you can't make excuses about what you can't do. So we chronicle outstanding kids doing outstanding work all the time on this show. And so there's no reason all of our kids can't be this extraordinary.
Very true. So
no excuses. We're not taking excuses anymore. Those fake checks have already been cashed and sent back. So you got to bring it now.
Absolutely. And keep up the great work. Before we go to our next story, we want to acknowledge a couple of folks who are on the chat line. Ms. Audrey Ms. Audrey Booker. We want to thank you for joining us this evening. Glad and happy to always see you in the house. Ms. Dominique Vining out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. Hot Atlanta.
ATL in the house.
Exactly. So thank you for joining us. And then, of course, our good friend Asar Al-Kabilan of the African Genius Podcast. Want to thank you for joining us as well. And hey, let's keep this party rolling. Other interesting news, Jimmy. Just found out that HBCUs in the UNCF coalition has just announced that they will receive the largest unrestricted gift in its 80-year history of $100 million by the Lilly Endowment.
Okay.
This is part of a $1 billion capital campaign to boost HBCUs' financial health and improve overall student attendance. This was announced, and, it will be going, or I guess distributed across the 37 HBCUs affiliated with the UNCF. Jimmy, this is, I can't say how much of a game changer it is, but this is very significant given that it's the largest donation in the 80-year history of the UNCF.
This is very significant, Tom. And we, when I say we, I mean the collective we, do not do enough to fund our HBCUs. The alums are not giving back enough, and certainly for UNCF, we should all be contributing a few dollars just to help with the scholarship fund. So we have to do more, Tom. And I know this wasn't on the agenda to talk about, but I'm so disappointed in this current administration who's cut funding for HBCUs. I know the overall funding levels have been increased thanks to Congress, but the proposed cuts by this administration, if they were allowed to be enacted, would have brought the funding levels down. So we have to make sure that 106 or 108, whatever the final number is, of HBCUs survive, because the 100 plus HBCUs graduate as many Black people as 3,000 plus white universities, or predominantly white universities. So we can't let our schools fail, Tom, because of funding.
That's true, Jimmy, and that's also considering the fact that a lot of our HBCUs are just catching up. I mean, we're in Texas, and so we understand, for instance, when you look at the likes of the Prairie View A&M universities that are part of the Texas A&M University system, of which, I went to school at, and how many decades behind most of our HBCUs in terms of getting funding from their states as state.
I don't understand that either, Tom, because they're both part of the A&M system. You would think they would be funded equally, but they're not.
Correct. And that's the whole part. So the reality of it is a lot of our HBCUs are underfunded historically by state institute. I mean, by their state houses, and they're just catching back up. So definitely hats off to the Lilly Foundation. What's happening. This money is going to be going towards enhancing student scholarships, HBCU endowments, technology and research. Something that's highly needed, of course. Cash reserved and endowed funds for the UNCF to support the annual campaign. So,
let's do this, Tom. Let's figure out with a point of contact or a public information officer for that endowment, and let's list it next week. And for all those who watch the show, please reach out to them with a thank you letter to show some appreciation.
All right. That sounds good. So again, we're the only ones who are going to make sure, Jimmy, that we're getting what we need from our representatives and using our economic and or political clout.
Well, that's something that's worth fighting for, Tom, to use our political clout to fight for more funding for UNCF and for HBCUs. Like I said, the 100 HBCUs graduate as many Blacks as 3,000 plus white universities. So we can't let any more HBCUs go under or fail. So this is where we draw the line and say we're going to fight. We're going to fight to make sure that the ones that are still in existence are going to stay in existence.
That's true, Jimmy. And then also make sure that, for the leaders of our institutions as well, regardless of whether you actually attended one or not, just because you went to a PWI, I forgot what you call PWI, but it's predominantly white institution is what we call it. is that, as I have and other folks have, contribute to our HBCUs, because quite frankly, if it were not for our HBCUs, a lot of our kids would not have had an opportunity
That's correct.
to get a degree of any
There's
sort.
nothing wrong with fighting for our own self-interest, Tom, and this is something that all of us should be interested in.
Very true. Very true. Because most of our state institutions, including the one that I graduated from, they are making sure that they keep the systems in place to keep the Black population within that maybe 2 to 3%. And that's across the board, across most public state institutions.
Well, we've had the recruiter that came on and talked about how the numbers are going down at the PWIs for Black enrollment. So, and like you said, with less effort being made to recruit Black students, we need to make sure that Black institutions survive and are viable for those students as a choice, as alternative choice when the PWIs are not making the effort to recruit them. You may not be welcome at the PWIs, but you're always welcome at a HBCU.
Exactly. You got a home when you don't have a home anyplace else.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go to our next story. This this Jimmy is a little bit more focused on health. Jimmy, of course, money don't mean nothing if you don't have the health to enjoy it. So we've got to continue to stay focused on keeping ourselves upright. And, there was a recent study by Duke University saying even though the gap has closed, African Americans are still more likely to die from the most common forms of cancer than their white counterparts. Even though they've been steadily declining. In 2000, African Americans were 26% more likely to die of the major forms of cancer than their white counterparts. That gap has closed from 26% to 12% in 2020, which, is progress, is good news, but there is still a lot of work to go. And this is based upon a study for the 4 most common causes of cancer, including breast cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, and prostate cancer. So the Duke scholars co-authored a study noting that substantial racial and ethnic disparities persisted for common and preventable cancers that contributed to some of this as well. There are certain areas where this gap actually stressed. With breast cancer patients, the rates increased from 31% of Black women who were more likely than their white counterparts to die to 37 in 2020. So that number actually got larger. Black men have double the odds of dying from prostate cancer than their white counterparts, 45% higher odds of dying from colon cancer in comparison to their white counterparts. So, Jimmy, we've still got some work.
With colon cancer, colon and prostate, you can just catch them early.
Yeah.
And I understand that you may not want to get the prostate exam every 4 or 5 years, but when you're over 50 years old, make sure you get it done. The colon cancer, that's just a stool test. You can take that and just send it in. But there's no reason not to have some kind of early detection on those two. Now, other cancers are a little more tricky to get a biopsy or to get examined for, but discover. But prostate and colon we should not be dying at large rates, but those two, when we're capable of detecting these things early. And so let's do our due diligence to take care of our health and get those two things taken care of.
Jimmy, I would agree with you 200% on that. For men in particular, we're probably the least likely to go visit the doctor. I think part of that has to do with historic mistrust of doctors and the healthcare system, or what they now call the health management system, just because of things, of course, that we know, like the Tuskegee experiment and other things where, unfortunately, institutionally, Black men and Black women were used as, lab experiments to determine how something worked. And that starts from the beginning of gynecology to the Tuskegee experiment to many other areas. And so I think the only way that you get past that, Jimmy, is getting more folks who look like us in hospitals, in doctor's office, and even, Jimmy, talking to folks in that space. That is becoming a challenge because, quite frankly, talking to folks who are in that space, they're doing a lot more to push folks from our community out of that space.
Yes. Well, in time, we have to do our part also to make sure we go and get regular checkups, especially when you go past 50. And with prostate, it's not a matter of if you're going to get prostate cancer. It's just a matter of when you're going to get prostate cancer. Just about every man who's living, at some point, if you live long enough, you're going to develop tumors in your prostate, and then they're going to turn into cancer. That doesn't always mean a death sentence, because sometimes a lot of men can just live with it. It doesn't spread. It just stays there. And if that's the case, generally, I think your doctors will make a determination, depending on your health, that just to let you live with it if that's the case. But there's no reason for you not to get checkups and not to get these things detected. Hopefully, if you catch it early enough, it won't be a death sentence. You can get treatment and live and survive it.
True, very true. I want to acknowledge a couple of other folks in the chat line. Miss Celia Reese, want to thank you for joining us this evening. What's going on? Or as Dwayne Thomas used to say, hey, how's it going?
Hey.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And then KJ Kevin Johnson, coming from the DC metro area. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. That's
not Kevin Johnson, the basketball player.
No, not that one.
Oh, okay.
He probably could have played basketball. Probably did play basketball when he was younger. But he's actually a architect and also in the military. He has a military background as well, but retired from the military a while ago, kind of runs his own business with architecture, design, and things of that nature. So he always being busy, always traveling. Whenever he can find time to join us, definitely want to thank him.
Well, we appreciate everyone who's joining us tonight, watching live. And like I said, spread the word. Invite a friend to come watch it with you, so you have something interesting to talk about.
All right. And of course, 06.
All
right. Next story, kind of an interesting story. And again, we kind of tracked this maybe a couple of years ago, Jimmy, when the late, great NBA All-Star Bill Russell passed. Well, something very interesting came up. A Reading, Massachusetts-based nonprofit, or the city of Reading, let me start out, is actually looking to establish a Bill Russell Day, which initially they did in 1963. But they're trying to true up and do it again. But a nonprofit called the Coalition of Us, based in Reading, is pushing on the town and the politicians in that area to actually acknowledge the trauma that happened to his family, as they are trying to honor them. At the end of the day, for those of you who do not know the story, who don't follow sports, Bill Russell is, one of the all-time greats. He is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of NBA Hall of Famers. Won 11 championship rings. And so,
if you're going to base it on championship rings, then he is definitely the GOAT.
He is the GOAT. But he died, of course, as we know, in July of 2022. But the storyline is his family actually experienced a lot of racial attacks and trauma when they moved to Reading, Massachusetts, when he was still a player. In May 1963, when the town promised to establish a Bill Russell Day to celebrate and honor what he had done for the team, all these awards. Well, guess what happens? When he attempted to move into the area, they put up a petition to prevent him and his family from moving into the area. Eventually, they moved in. They were the only Black family that were living in that area, and they did have to pay for it. Unfortunately, he would, of course, travel to go play, basketball games. And, when they got back, people would trash his place. They would put racial epithets. They actually broke into his home, sprayed stuff on the walls, tore up his trophies. And then when he reported to the police, when he said, look what they did, the police blamed it on the raccoons, Jimmy.
Those pesky raccoons, Tom.
Yeah, pesky
raccoons. I'm surprised they didn't claim he did it himself just to make white people look bad.
Exactly. And, it was kind of a sad state of affairs. Eventually, they did move out of Reading, Massachusetts. He didn't ask for anything. He just said, I want to make sure that my family's safe. Even his daughter wrote an op-ed, saying that, trophy cases were smashed. And on top of that, that the burglars who broke into their house defecated on their bed.
Okay.
So it was a pretty bad situation. But bottom line, you have all these years later, and they want to celebrate the great Bill Russell. So what this nonprofit is doing is saying, hey, okay, I hear what you're saying, but you know what? We need to atone for how we treated this family, because as you're trying to capitalize on this being the former home of Bill Russell, who left because y'all pushed him out, or this city, or the citizens of this city pushed him out, you need to atone for how you treated his family. And of course, the politicians aren't really trying to have that. They're saying, hey, let's just kind of focus, on the greatness and what he did.
Of course not, Tom. But I agree with this nonprofit. One of the other reasons you do this is, also so you can show progress. You can show where we've been and where we've come. I know that there are a lot of people that are probably saying, well, I wasn't involved, I wasn't living, I wasn't part of it. So let's just let things die, or let's rest, leave the past in the past. But you don't learn from the past that way. Where you learn from it and bring it to the surface, and we can all look at it and say, yes, those were bad events, those were bad people, and that we've grown since then. This is why you don't hide the past and bury it and cover it up. We need transparency here, Tom, in all situations, but all too often, Black past, especially when we've been oppressed, the oppression or the oppressors are hidden, because we don't talk about it. So there's nothing wrong with talking about our history and putting it in the context of what it is. But like I said, the bigger picture is it shows how much we've grown more than anything about who we are now. I mean, it does say a lot about who we are now, to say that we're not the same as we were then and that we've grown. And so that should be celebrated. That should be brought to the surface, not hidden and covered up. So I hope in the end they went out by telling the whole story as they find a way to commemorate and celebrate Russell and his contribution.
I would agree, Jimmy. And, for those of you who care, whether you're sports fans or Bill Russell fans, it looks like they are in February. The town's board is planning to vote on forming the committee to plan a Bill Russell Day. If it does pass by a majority vote, a new committee will plan the day honoring Bill Russell in 2024. Now, board member, I won't call his name out, Carlo Bacci, BACCI, believes the focus is best left on Bill Russell as an athlete and not anything related to race or civil rights. But, at the end of the day, sometimes, Jimmy, you have to have enough courage to say, we need to atone for what we've done so that you can heal. Because as long as you leave it out there, it's going to fester and grow. And that doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes, but it takes a lot of courage to own up if you did something wrong so that you can heal from it and move forward.
Yes, it helps everyone.
So for those of you out there who have an interest in this area, you might want to call or write a letter and show your interest to it. And hopefully, they will create an opportunity to atone for what has happened, to at least, if nothing else, acknowledge what happened, even though they may not have done it.
Right.
And say, you know what? Some things that happened, shouldn't have happened. We want to apologize to the family, and we want to honor this great man for what he's done for this town, because it's real easy to capitalize and make money for someone who actually was a benefit to the city so that you can make money off of it, but you can't atone for how you traumatized him and his family.
Yeah, they'll do the right thing in the end, Tom. I have a little faith. I don't know these people, but I believe they'll do the right thing in the end.
Let's certainly hope so, because, Bill is one of the greats, regardless of whether you are a Celtics fan or not.
The GOAT of the greats.
Exactly. Whether you're a Celtics fan or not. Hey,
not a Celtics fan, but
11 rings is 11 rings.
Right.
All right, Jimmy, let's go to our next story. This is something that should be of interest that we should be watching as well. There has been a bipartisan deal that is going through Congress right now that could potentially expand the child tax credit with some provision tied to providing some benefit to businesses as well. The pact is the culmination of months of talks that have long centered around the idea of pairing priorities for three expired business deductions from the 2017 Trump tax cuts with the keen focus on pandemic-era enhanced child tax credit. 15 million children, they're estimating, from low-income families would be better off if they pass this legislation called the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act of 2024, that if passed, Jimmy, actually could benefit families this year.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Tom, the way we do tax credits, especially earned income credits for children, I'm not a big fan of. And here's why. One, the money comes in one lump sum. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to spend it as when the money comes in. The other thing is this tax credit is given to anyone in the country who has a child. It's not limited to citizens. So here recently we've had millions of folks come into the country illegally. Those folks who are dragging kids with them will be eligible to apply for an earned income credit. And I don't know what the credit is now, but I think as max,
I believe it's $1,600.
It's $1,600. Yes. Okay, it used to be higher than that. I thought it was around $2,700 per child at the lowest income level. Mm-hmm. If you earn below like $12,000, I thought it was like $2,700. But anyway, it doesn't matter. For families that could use the help, I think it would be much better if the money was sort of distributed over the course of a year. So you can have an infusion of extra capital coming in every month to help you do some things, versus what happens now is just a big spending spree for some people, not all, but for some people. They get the money, get their tax return, and then it's just spend until it's gone, and then you're back in the same poverty situation you were before with no benefit to the child whatsoever. I mean, the earned income credit was supposed to be to help offset the cost of daycare, really was the primary focus, and the cost of diapers and formula and other things that drive the cost of raising children, but very seldom time is that money actually used for that purpose. The earned income credit now is a down payment on a car and a shopping spree and hair and nails and a bunch of other things that has nothing to do with children. So that's the problem I have with it.
How would you recommend that you close the loop holes in that thing?
Well, Tom, you know what? If I give you $200 a month, and that's something that you can apply towards your cost of living, which includes the children. I give you $2,500, then that check may end up at the car dealership.
You may have some new rims.
Yes, that's the point. So I would just much rather the money be spread out where it actually, when you're just not enough money to go do much of anything else other than offset some of your monthly cost of living, versus a lump sum where you can take it down to buy new rims or down payment on a car or a shopping spree. Just from personal example, I mean, my sister, when she has 5 kids, but when they were all young and they would get she would get an earned income credit, and sometimes she didn't even work those years, but she still qualified for a credit. That check, $10,000, $12,000, that was the money to go to Ethiopia, Jamaica, to travel with basically and live large for 3 months, and then it's back to poverty after that. So I've seen firsthand how that earned income credit check can be abused.
So otherwise, your recommendation is it should be installments, not one lump sum.
Installments, and then only paid to American citizens. I don't like the fact, and then on top of that, Tom, a lot of foreigners who don't even live in the country abuse that system. Billions of dollars actually end up being paid to foreigners who don't live in the country.
How does that work? How does that work? Foreigners who
they use local addresses. They find some kids to claim, and by the time the check comes in and forwarded overseas, you find out. I mean, the government eventually finds out that 2 or 3 people have already claimed this child and that something's wrong. But if they can't find you because you're overseas, you're in Nigeria or something, then they're just laughing. They already got their money and gone. So I know the IRS has made it a little harder to claim the credit. They want a birth certificate and a social security number, so they're doing a much better job at tracking it. But that program has been abused for a very long time, and the crooks are not just going to walk away from billions of dollars that they've been skimming on the government. They'll just find other ways to skim the money, to steal the money. So,
Gotcha. And we got our resident expert CPA on the line now, John Williams, who said for workers with qualifying children, the earned income credit could be as high as $7,430. Now, my question is, John, is that for one child or is that
one child?
7,400. Now that's pretty doggone significant. $7,430 per child.
You got 4 or 5 children, Tom. That's a salary slot.
Exactly. That show. I mean, if you got 5 children, Jimmy, that goes a long way.
And if you're different enough to actually take the money and apply it towards your monthly cost and spend it towards the children, then that would be great. But if you're picking up 25,000, 30,000 lump sum every year, that can encourage you to be wasteful because the check is going to come in the following year. And then Congress is looking to raise that amount by $1,700.
Well, Jimmy, that's not just rims. That's going to Pompadours. That's having a pretty expensive vacation if you're not careful.
Well, Tommy, in my family case, I wish, looking back on it, that my sister had used the money to buy a house. She lived in a city where property was cheap. She could have bought about 2 or 3 houses every year with that kind of money. But I mean, traveling to Jamaica and other places, I mean, it's great to go see the world, but that money for people who pay into the system was not really designed for you to travel on.
Gotcha. All right, Jimmy. Let's keep it moving. We got a couple of more items, and I guess we can figure out which we want to do. Surf or turf first. We got a little politics and a little sports. So which do you want to do first? Sports, politics, or
let's do the sports and see if we can save the last remaining minutes to cover the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is politics.
All right. Okay. She said, John said that's for 7,430 for multiple children. So that's not, if I'm understanding J-Dub, that's not for one. That's not per child, 7,400 per child. That's 7,400 for multiple children, or that's the max. Maybe you can answer that. Anyway, let's go ahead and go to our sports source so we can get to our start of our political discussions for this year, 2024. Jimmy, I know that you ain't watching sports no more, but I'm still watching the NFL because it's still the NFL playoff. And, of course, the New England Patriots didn't get nowhere sniffing close to the playoffs, but they did do something very significant. They hired their first African-American head coach, Gerard Mayo, who actually was the coach over the linebackers, Jim, and I think they're de facto defensive play caller this year. And this is after the great Bill Belichick. Okay, 3 or more qualifying children. Gotcha. Thanks a lot, John. The great, really the GOAT of coaching of this generation, Bill Belichick, just parted ways with New England after I think a 4-13 season or something of that nature. And, who knows where he's going to land up next. We know he's going to land someplace. But they hired their very first African-American head coach, which is significant for a couple of reasons. This is really considered to be, if for sure, the most successful franchise in the 21st century. And really, I guess if you look at it, I think are they tied with Pittsburgh for the most Super Bowls? The Pittsburgh Steelers?
The Steelers have 6. The Cowboys have 5. No, New England has 7. They have 6.
Okay, I thought
Tom Brady has 7.
Oh, who has 7? Oh, Tom Brady has 7. So New England has 6.
6, yeah. So they're tied with.
I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So they're tied with the Steelers, yes.
Okay, Pittsburgh Steelers had 6. New England had 6. I found this pretty interesting, and we've talked about this before, Jimmy, because there are so few head coaches, African American, in the NFL. There are 32 teams total. There are 3 head coaches that are African American in the NFL. Two of them still in the playoffs right now, Jimmy. When you think about it, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Todd Bowles, coaching them. And then, of course, Mike Tomlin. They just lost this past weekend. He's the elder statesman now that Bill Belichick is gone. I think that makes Mike Tomlin the senior statesman, if he does not retire after this year in the NFL of all coaches. D'Amico Ryan, who flipped the Houston Texans in 1 year with the great C.J. Stroud.
And Michigan Coach of the Year.
Yep. And now Jared Mayo, who will be the newly bona fide coach of the New England Patriots. I know that you're not a Patriots fan. You probably don't follow the Patriots, but what are your thoughts on this in context to the NFL?
I mean, I think it's a good thing. In fact, I'm hoping that the Cowboys follow suit. I think the era of the dinosaur coaches is come and gone. It's time for evolution to take its place, and for those guys to go retire, to be buried and turn into coal or fossil fuel one day. But the younger coaches, Tom, are just out scheming the older coaches. They're innovative. They're planning better. They're using the talent that they have and get the most out of it. You know, Belichick used to do that, but I'm not sure. I mean, I know he's a great defensive coach as far as scheming, but I'm going to say, based on what we saw when Tom Brady left, Tom Brady was able to leave and go win a championship. New England Patriots and Belichick have not won anything since Tom Brady left. So I don't know how much of his coaching was of his greatness or was a product of Tom Brady. And so maybe we'll never know. But if I was him, I wouldn't come back to coaching, because you could potentially ruin your legacy if you go someplace else and you don't win or find a way to turn things around and have the success you had in New England. And you don't want to go out being a loser. That would be my. If people think I'm a genius coach, I just leave it at that. And if it was a lot of that was due to Tom Brady and it's still up in the air as to whether it was me or Tom or both, I would just still let that be the discussion. You know, here in Dallas, we know for a certainty that it was Jimmy Johnson with the 3 championships that we won in the 90s.
Now, is that the reason why you say it wouldn't tarnish his legacy? Because he went to the Miami Dolphins and they did not go to or win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that is true. Him and Weinstein went to the Dolphins. They had a little success, but they won a championship. But Jerry, without Jimmy, hasn't done anything close to winning a championship. So we can definitely say, whether it was Jimmy or Jerry, we can definitely say at that time it was Jimmy.
Right. Absolutely. And so the question would only be, again, because Belichick has been separated from his quarterback, there are still questions there. And that's the only reason. I don't think anybody is questioning Jimmy Johnson's supremacy as a head coach.
If he had stayed in Miami too long and let that continue to play out of not winning or producing a championship there, he could have potentially ruined his chance. But I think he stepped away from Miami before it could ruin his legacy.
I think he acknowledged that the game had changed, free agency and a lot of things, had changed about the game. And him.
Yeah, the salary cap was the big thing. When he was winning championships, there was no salary cap.
Exactly.
So you could bring players in, pay them as much as you want. There was no restriction. Jerry's the one who introduced the salary cap to the NFL because he figured he could wheel and deal the cap better than other teams and have an advantage.
Wrong again. He thought he could do it without Jimmy. Wrong. He thought he could do it with it.
Oh, yeah. So it's definitely been on him for the last 28 years. And so we can definitely say that those early championships are probably more Jimmy than Jerry. And since Jimmy's been gone, it's been all Jerry. And we see the results of all Jerry, what Jerry has produced.
Nada.
No championships.
All right, let's go through the lineup this weekend. I know you're only a Cowboys fan, but we got to go through the lineup for this weekend. The Bucks and the Lions. What are your thoughts?
I'm going to give the Detroit probably the edge.
I'm going with the Lions as well. I've seen both play. The Bucks, I'm trying to tell you, I don't even recognize the Bucks. And, good for them. But you know what? The Lions are solid in their coaching. There's something to be said about a guy who is showing how much he believes in his team to go for it on 4th down just as much as he does possibly on 3rd down. So
yeah, Tom, that's been a strategy. I mean, and it's one, and it instills confidence in your players when you do that, to let them know that I trust you to get this done. Everyone has a job to do, and I trust you to get it done. So and those are more than just words. I hate it when teams play safe. They get in the field goal range and they play it safe, and they know, well, at the very least, we got 3 points. Well, 3 points shouldn't be your goal.
I would agree.
Scoring should be your goal. A touchdown should be your goal. So that's what I say. When you have younger coaches, innovative coaches, coaches who are courageous, believe in their team, inspire their teams for greatness, that's what a coach should do. Not these dinosaurs that we have keep rotating and bringing in here. They bring a little discipline to the team, but that style of play that they are used to, that age is gone. I mean, the age of the old football style, the Lombardi folks. I mean, that's all gone now. These coaches now are younger, better. They scheme better, they plan better, and they're able to adjust where the old coaches don't adjust at all. So they just stick with their plan, win or lose. And that style of play is, it'll only get you so far. And for Dallas and our coach, it only gets you a decent record during the season, but it doesn't prepare you for the playoffs.
All right, next game, Bills versus the Chiefs. What are your thoughts?
I hate to go against the Chiefs, even though Andy Reid is one of those old-style coaches, but he has still found a way to win. So until he gives one up, I'm going to go with Andy Reid and say the Chiefs. We'll see.
Because it's going to be played in Buffalo. Both teams are cold weather teams. This is going to be a tough.
The cold weather's not going to bother the Chiefs.
I know that. I said both of them are cold weather teams. The challenge here with me, Jimmy, is that consistency with the Chiefs. I mean, this is the playoffs, and obviously, I know that a team it's a start from scratch, winning you out. I'm leaning towards the Bills on this, and I am not a big Bills fan at all. I'm a big Andy Reid fan, but I'm thinking that home cooking might lean towards the Bills. So you're going to take the Chiefs. I'll go ahead and take the Bills on it, even though in my heart, I want the Chiefs to win, but my mind is telling me it's going to be the Bills.
Okay.
All right, next game, the 49ers and those startup Green Bay Packers. They were impressive this past week with your Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm thinking that this may be the end of the road for Green Bay. The 49ers the 49ers are built for the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're really good during the season team. They demonstrate that, but they've really built that team structurally to prepare for the playoffs. So I'm going to give the 49ers the edge until Green Bay show me that other than beating up on Dallas, decrepit team, that they can actually beat a quality team. I know the last half of the season they've been playing outstanding. Love has been outstanding in his play. I wish the Cowboys back when he came out of Utah would have drafted him. Maybe he'd be our quarterback now instead of the one we have. But anyway, that's another story. But until they show me that they can actually beat a quality team, I'm going to go with the quality teams at the top of that mountain.
Yeah, and they're playing in San Francisco. And, short of pretty significant injuries for the 49ers, and I think folks are getting healthy. They had a couple of weeks off. I'm going to have to go with the 49ers as well. The Green Bay, I think they're going to be good for a long time. I just don't think this is their time yet. And, I don't want to say this is Super Bowl or bust for the 49ers, but you only have so much time to get there. I think they see the sense of urgency. They've got to get back to the Super Bowl. So I'm going with the 49ers as well. Last game, man, those Texans and the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens.
It's hard to go against the Ravens. Excuse me. It's hard to go against the Ravens and Jackson, but I'm going to go with my home state team since the Cowboys don't have anything to cheer for now except the Texans. I'm not a big Houston fan, but they are our brother or sister organization here in Texas. So I don't think they're going to beat the Ravens, but I'm going to cheer for them anyway. So I'll go ahead and pick the Texans just out of state loyalty.
I'm have no affinity towards state loyalty in this case. I'm going with the Ravens. I'm going with Lamar Jackson. I think
Okay.
that the Texans got great coaching. I mean, my hats off to D'Amico Ryan. I hope that they give him the nod for Coach of the Year, and then C.J. Stroud for Rookie of the Year. I mean, they've done absolutely phenomenal. They've defied the odds. D'Amico Ryan is a rookie coach. C.J. Stroud, a rookie quarterback. Perfect rating, I believe, in his first playoff game. And so my hat's off to both of them. But you know what? As much as people have been dumping on Lamar Jackson, pretty much since he was draft day and fell to 32, I am leaning on him to get to and win a Super Bowl, at least a couple. So I'm going to go with the Ravens with my head and my heart, all of it that I got. So
All right.
those are our picks. We'll see what happens. we'll see how many cuts we got next week when we come back. All right, Jimmy. Our last story of the day, Jimmy. This is going to be interesting. I know we're going to have a lot of conversations this year. Of course, 2024 is a big election year. And
why don't we do this, because we only have a couple of minutes left.
Okay.
Why don't we save that topic for next show, and we'll start off next week with that topic and just pick it up from there.
We can start that with next topic. So we've got a couple of minutes left. So with that,
we can wet the whistle to do a preview if you like. But
we'll give it a couple of minutes and call it a wrap.
So it's election season, and so of course, at least one show of the month, we probably should focus on what's going on with the elections on both sides. So, but the shift that I want to discuss, and so we can think about this, and everyone can get their questions ready and comments ready for next week, is, of course, we continue to. We've always said that we're not a monolithic voting bloc, although the evidence show that we are.
Who's not a monolithic voting bloc?
Black people.
Where does anybody ever say that we're not?
We've had some a couple of shows here where that's been said, where people said, "Oh, we're diverse in our voting," and I think you've maybe made that claim. But we are very monolithic when it comes to voting.
Black folks are very. I mean, African Americans are very monolithic. We were Republicans. We voted overwhelmingly Republican, of course. After the Emancipation Proclamation. And then that shifted.
Up until 1936, yes.
Yeah, up until the mid-30s with FDR and, of course, the New Deal. And, then that was kind of, cemented in the 60s, so to speak, with the civil rights legislation. But, things happen.
Things happen, Tom, and there's starting to slowly be a shift, depending on what poll you look at. I've seen some as high as 22%, some as low as 15% of that say Black people are starting to change their allegiance from Democrat to Donald Trump. So it's not necessarily the Republican Party; it's more Trump, the personality, than anything else. But I've seen that number as high as 35% for Black men. That for Black women is probably only like 10 or 11%. But I guess it averages out to about 20% or the low 20s. But it's interesting to see if that trend is going to continue to November, or whether it's going to shrink or whether it's going to grow. But here's what the experts say, that if a Democratic candidate doesn't get at least 85% of the Black vote, then that candidate has no chance, because in the swing states, the Black vote is what changes the tide from one party to the other. So we will right now, Joe is, I think, polling at 65% with Black people. And if that stays at 65%, then he has very little chance.
Is that Black or is that overall, Jimmy? Because for some reason I thought it was like in the mid upper 30s with both, and I think Trump was ahead by maybe 2 to 4 points depending on what poll you look at.
In the swing states, so I'm talking about the swing states.
Okay, swing states.
The swing states, his support among Blacks is down to I think 65%.
Okay,
like the lowest it's ever been since before 1936. And so it'll be interesting to see if these numbers hold, whether they grow. But what I want to get into more detail so we can vet this out is to talk about some of the reasons for what may be the catalyst for the shift. Why are some Black people starting to become disenfranchised with the Democrat Party, that they're doing the unspeakable in the Black community of thinking about voting for a Republican. So that would get you run out of town sometime just 10, 20 years ago, and now it's becoming more acceptable. So
Right, right. Well, I mean, you got to look, when you got folks like, Jesse L, running and other folks like that. It was, what is, and I hate to say what I want to say, but yeah, there you go. Al Sharpton and Jesse L. And I don't know, was Cornell West running as not that he was significant?
I think he was
Is he
either
third party
independent or the
or
Greenpeace
Democrat?
Party. The Greenpeace, I think, is what
Okay,
he may
yeah,
be.
I think so. But in this case, it's actually kind of funny because, of course, everybody's talking about how old Joe Biden is. Well, Trump ain't no spring chicken. He's about 77.
Well, I think we say age with Joe because we see him falling, tripping, stumbling over things, forgetting where he is, can't get off stage. I mean, his age is actually starting to show. So, I mean, you could be a very young 91, and I mean, if you're still cognizant and your brain still works, it's fine. Or you could be 81 and you can't figure out where you are or who you're talking to. I mean, this guy talks to Queen Elizabeth and he's looking around, shaking hands when people are not there. So I think he's a ghost whisperer, personally.
Gotcha. The way I see it, Jimmy, it's just like, you have two Mr. Smithers fighting against each other. One Mr. Smithers is riding a dog, and another Mr. Smithers is riding an elephant. Mr. Smithers from The Simpsons.
Yes. So why don't we pick up the conversation up next week, and for everyone, think about it, let it marinate a little bit, and you can come back with your questions and comments, and because we love to hear from everyone and see what you think.
So y'all better come back with your questions, thoughts, and observations next week. This is going to be a fun one coming back next week, and we want to, in the meantime, thank everybody for showing up. Invite your friends. And as T always say, get your popcorn out.
Get your popcorn. Yes, get ready.
All
so
right.
That being said, Tom, we wish everyone stay warm, stay secure, stay safe, and please come back next week and we'll finish the conversation.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.